Welcome to a chilly and blustery Silverstone, the home of British motor racing, for the unique Grand Prix Masters event for ex-Grand Prix drivers in identical 650 horsepower single-seaters whose performance is bettered only by full house Formula One cars. But in the run-up to this, the most important meeting of the series, which has already seen enormously successful events in South Africa last November and in Qatar earlier this year, the event has been struck a very hard blow indeed by multiple engine failures, which have limited the drivers' mileage here at Silverstone and adversely affected their ability to perfect their car setups. So far, of the 15 cars, there have been 32 engine changes, and at least 2 of the drivers have got to forego the qualifying period to save their engines and start at the back.
Bob Burridge, can you tell me a bit about what has been happening with the engines?
Yeah, with the engine manufacturer, apparently, I don't know because I've not officially spoke to any of the management because they're not here. But as far as we can ascertain from the guys on the ground, they changed the specification of the crankshaft without us knowing, and that culminated in an oil starvation problem to the rear of the crankshaft, which we started to get a lot of swarf in the oil. The guys have just worked amazingly since Wednesday. They've done 32 engine changes across 11 cars, and it looks like Nigel's car's the final one. It looks like we finally got them all ready for qualifying.
So what is the position with qualifying, and what are the plans of GPM to cope with it?
It looks like we can get nearly all the cars out for qualifying, and I think there's 1 or 2 that we've still got left to do, so the lads are scheduled to work all night tonight, but we will field the full grid of cars, I'm sure, tomorrow with God's grace.
Thank you, Bob.
The question is, what is going to happen now? Well, let's have a look at Silverstone itself, and who better to talk us round it than ex-Formula One world champion Australian Alan Jones.
Yeah, hi Murray, hi everybody. Well, Silverstone is a much changed circuit since I drove here. Obviously it was considerably less corners and considerably quicker. It used to alternate between Austria and Silverstone as to what is the quickest circuit in Europe. We're on board now with Emerson Fittipaldi, and we're going down to turn 1, which is Cops, which is a 4th gear corner, very quick corner, a very late commitment into it. Up into 5th towards Maggots, back to 4th, 3rd, into Beckett's, through Chapel, and then down Hanger Straight towards Stowe. Which Stowe really hasn't changed a great deal since when I drove here. It's still a fairly quick right-hander.
But this session of the course has changed, Alan, as we go into the Vale, which leads to Club Corner. And the entry here, this left-hander, is taken in 2nd gear at about 50 miles an hour. And then they have to get up into 3rd and then on up towards Abbey.
Well, Club used to be, I think, in the old days, 4th or 5th, nearly flat out in a wing car. And of course Abbey's changed as well. That was just a left-hander leading on up under the bridge, but now we go left and then right. Then down under the bridge, very quick right-hander. It's a very late commitment, flat onto it, then you're no sooner through there than you've got to jump on the brakes. Go through Priory, Brooklands, and then into Luffield, and now you're on the gas now, flat out, all the way through Woodcote, down past the start-finish line, back into Cops.
And a good lap here at Silverstone for the Formula One qualifying was Fernando Alonso in 1 minute 21 seconds. It's been about 16 seconds slower than that. The fastest that we've had so far was Nigel Mansell, 1 minute 37.5, and that of course is before the qualifying session. And talking of Nigel, he's down there in the pit lane with Amanda Stratton.
Yes, Nigel, now we have had the worst possible luck this weekend. How does it affect you when you're going into what should be the greatest race of our year?
Yeah, it's a brilliant question, Amanda, and I just feel so sorry for all the engineers and the mechanics working so hard. They've changed more engines this week than ever in my memory I can in my Formula One days. and we seem to have compound problems with the gearbox, and now we've just had a radiator burst. But I went out and the engine was sort of working, but the gearbox wasn't working with the engine. But the thing is, you keep your spirits high. No one can work any harder, but there's a few problems that we shouldn't be having, and it's just a little bit disappointing, but we will get it together. And we hope for a fantastic race tomorrow. For me personally, this afternoon for qualifying is going to be a big challenge. I did 0 laps this morning to try and set the car up. I've just done 1 lap now, but there's another problem with the car, so it's going to be an immense experience this afternoon. Seeking the words there, they eventually came, but no, it's exciting too. That's motor racing, and I've got to take my hat off to all the fellow drivers. They have shown what true professionals they are this week. We're all under a lot of pressure, and we're all actually standing up to it very well. But a big thank you to Bob Berridge and all his team for doing such a superb job, because the problem is not theirs.
Thank you, Nigel.
Thank you.
And now we get that wonderful sight of big cars, big, powerful 650 horsepower cars in action at a circuit that the drivers love, Silverstone. And it's so different from most of today's Formula One circuits, which are second and third gear point and squirt circuits. Silverstone is all about big, fast, open corners.
Commitment. It's about committing into fast corners. I mean, there's some corners here where you really have to go in very, very late, commit to the corner and accelerate. It's a great circuit. And as I said earlier on, you look at the great circuits of the world, there's Monza, there's Nürburgring, and Silverstone is certainly right up there amongst them.
And Amanda is down in the pit lane, and this time it's with the great Emerson Fittipaldi.
Emerson, you're still in the pit lane and the session has just started. You are going to be able to get out.
I am ready to go. I just wait a little more, few minutes. The major problem today is the understeer. The car is pushing understeer, and we try to solve for qualifying.
Well, this is refreshing, actually, having a different set of problems.
Yes, that's so far is the setup, the handling, and I hope it'll be good now.
Now, can we just talk very quickly about your sideburns, please? We've noticed that they've grown since Kyalami and Qatar. Is this part of the Emerson getting back and fit into racing?
Getting back to England on a big style, like I used to be in the 70s, and that's why. Thank you.
Thank you, Emerson.
What a lovely man.
Well, if he's not careful, Nigel will grow his moustache back and then he'll be in trouble.
Eddie Cheever heading towards us down the Hangar Straight. Now, the Hangar Straight is one of the fastest parts, in fact, the fastest part of the corner, 118 miles an hour. These 650 horsepower, 3.5 litre cars are doing when they head down there and turn into Stowe. And now there is the turn from the Vale into Club Corner and climbing up towards Abbey, doing about 165 miles an hour. Eddie Cheever is another man that we really need to watch in the race, because he had terrible trouble in South Africa, he had terrible trouble in Qatar. He's one of the chaps who just might be able to hold a candle to Nigel Mansell, as is in the blue car there, Stefan Johansson from Sweden, who is another man with a gigantic amount of Grand Prix experience. He's driven for 10 Formula One teams and raced at Indianapolis and in the American Series. And here he goes. Alan, tell us what he's doing, what he's thinking.
Well, it was interesting to note before when Emerson said that his car's now developed understeer. Well, what's happened, Murray, is because Silverstone is quite a quick corner and you commit yourself into these quick corners, today is extremely windy. It's a very windy day. So when you point the car into a corner, into the wind, it has a tendency to get under the front of the car and take a certain amount of downforce, and that's what's giving them this understeer. And because they've had these engine problems, they haven't enjoyed their time on the track to tune that out of the car as they would have.
Nigel Mansell being jovial as ever, because that's his chief rival, Emerson Fittipaldi. Now, I was talking about lap times earlier on, and the fact that the Formula One pole position time this year for the British Grand Prix had been 1:21.018. Nigel Mansell did a 1:37.5 yesterday in the Grand Prix Masters car. Stefan Johansson is currently fastest after just about 5 minutes of this 45-minute session. He's done a 1:38.048. Riccardo Patrese is second. Jan Lammers is in third position, but it's very, very early days yet as we watch Eddie Cheever again. Eddie felt cheated at Qatar by the restart procedure because he was not able to get away as quickly as he wanted to do, as a result of which he lost sight of Nigel Mansell, who jumped the others to perfection in Qatar.
Well, exactly. I mean, it's all very well and good for Eddie being cheesed off about the fact that, he got left behind at the start. But the truth of the matter was he fell asleep. And Nigel was right on the ball, and when the go was on, Nigel was on it, and I think it took Eddie what seemed like a couple of seconds to wake up to the fact.
Well, as ever, times are changing. Eddie Cheever went fastest with 1:39.0. Then Johansson did a 1:38, which was a second faster. Johansson has gone quicker again, 1:37.7, which is just 0.2 of a second off Nigel Mansell's fastest time yesterday in conditions which were very different. But what we're all sweating on, frankly, at the moment is Nigel Mansell going to get out in this session, or is he going to have to start at the back, as I believe Eric van der Poel and Pierluigi Martini, the two youngest drivers in the event, are going to have to do tomorrow. They're both 45 years old. 45 is the bottom age limit to come into Grand Prix Masters. I would frankly, Alan, like to see no bottom age limit at all. Why should it be 45?
Well, I mean, there are other regulations. You must have competed in Grand Prix racing for 2 years. You must have been out of it for more than 2 years. So I would have thought that alone probably would have been enough.
Stefan Johansson, you're looking at number 2, 50 years old. Incidentally, Emerson Fittipaldi, that you've just been seeing and hearing from Amanda Stratton about, is 59. He's the oldest driver in the race. There's an age gap of 14 years between the two youngest. And number 17 there, Eddie Cheever, being passed by Stefan Johansson as they come up to the end of the lap. They're exiting Woodcote Corner, very, very quick indeed. Building up speed to go down to Cops Corner. They approach it at about 175 miles an hour now and turn in, change down from 5th to 4th, slow down to about 120 miles an hour, and then accelerate round the right, out of the right-hander up to 170 miles an hour for Maggots, which is where Stefan Johansson is now. Into Beckett's, the left-right, third gear as they exit the second right-hander. Into Chapel Curve, the left-hander, which goes down to Hanger Straight, the very, very quick one. And you see now what Alan and I have been talking about the beauty of Silverstone. You can really get stuck into it. You don't have to worry about first gear, second gear, third gear, yes. And Derek Warwick, number 12, is out on the circuit now.
This is my dark horse, Murray. I think Derek's really got the eyes on this weekend. It's his home track, as indeed, Nigel.
He's just done the fastest. He's done the fastest second sector of all. Derek Warwick, as you rightly say, Alan, is really up for it. He presents in the nicest possible way. You couldn't meet a more cheerful or nicer bloke than Derek Warwick, but he resents having been beaten by Nigel Mansell in South Africa and at Qatar. He, like everybody in this race, is tremendously competitive, and he's determined to show Nigel Mansell the way round. Stefan Johansson has just gone faster again. He's going even quicker. He's in the third sector now of the lap, which, like all Formula One laps, is broken down into 3 sectors for timing purposes. And if you start seeing purple figures on the monitor, you know that it's going to be a quick lap. And Stefan Johansson has just gone through, as you see, just about 0.02 of a second faster than he had been before, 1:37.7. And where is Derek Warwick? And the answer is second at the present moment, just 0.2 of a second slower than Stefan Johansson, with Hans Stuck in third position. Jan Lammers is followed by Christian Danner and Riccardo Patrese, and Nigel Mansell is still not out on the circuit. And we've got 10 minutes of this 45-minute session completed as you watch René Arnoux in the yellow car in the background. Now, Derek Warwick coming up to René Arnoux. Come on, René,
Might be just saying hello, you don't know.
I do. Derek Warwick will be very put out by that because he's just done the 2 fastest first sectors. The problem, one of the problems as we watch Hans Stuck's car being worked on, Alan, is where do you draw the line in terms of ability as these drivers get older? We were talking about René Arnoux as we watch Chloe Mansell on the left and Dad on the right. We were talking about the fact that René Arnoux was 10 seconds slower than the fastest in practice this morning. I mean, is that okay?
Well, yes and no, I guess. I mean, it's not really acceptable, but the only thing that will save that is their experience. It's one thing to have an inexperienced person being 10 seconds a lap slower because he's not going to have the experience to look in the mirrors and keep out of the way. Having said that, when he just balked Derek Warwick. But it was funny what you were saying before. There was a 14-year age difference between some of the drivers. And I was thinking this yesterday. There must have been times years ago when some of these guys were actually leaning over the fence looking at Emerson Fittipaldi and saying, that's my hero.
Yeah, the immortal Juan Manuel Fangio, my all-time hero next to Tazio Nuvolari, did not even compete in his first Formula One race until he was 37 years old. So there's life in these drivers yet. But now here is some good news. It is 10 minutes past 1 in quarter an hour's time, I am told. At 25 past 1, you can expect Nigel Mansell to exit his garage and attack the Silverstone lap in a situation where a lot of very quick tyres will have been put up. At the present moment, it is Stefan Johansson, whose time of 1 minute 37.7 is the target for everybody. But they'll all be trying to keep Nigel Mansell down and get themselves up the qualifying grid as much as they possibly can as we watch René Arnoux coping with that 650 horsepower lump behind him.
Oops.
Turn in right.
See, at the moment, with Silverstone the way it is, today is a lot more, it's considerably windier than what it was yesterday. But having said that, there's more rubber on the track. It's a cooler conditions, therefore the engines are going to be working a little bit more. They're going to be producing a bit more horsepower. So what they may be losing in terms of a bit of wind disadvantage, they'll make up with rubber on the track and just that little bit more horsepower in the engine because of the coolness.
And that is Eliseo Salazar from Chile. He's 51. I think he's about the third oldest. And thus far we're okay. There are 12 engines running. Nigel Mansell will hopefully be the 13th. But do not expect to see Pierluigi Martini out. He's Italian and perhaps not inappropriately. His business is ice cream, the bulk manufacture of ice cream. And he was telling me yesterday he's had a very good season so far. He's been very hot in Italy, he said, and the sales are very good indeed. Salazar is another man who's a hero in his own country in Chile. Touring cars, sports cars, he's driven a lot. His career in Formula One was comparatively limited, and I suppose he's most famous of all for the punch-up that he had with Nelson Piquet at Hockenheim when Salazar inadvertently blocked Nelson Piquet going into the chicane. Nelson got out of the car absolutely furious and attacked Salazar with a bit of fisticuffs and kicking and shouting. But he was all right. He survived it all okay. And now, as you see, 31 and a half minutes out of the 45 have still to go. And you can see the order at the present moment. Stefan Johansson fastest, Derek Warwick second. The gap between them remains at 2 seconds, 0.2 seconds. Yes, Stefan Johansson's done 5 laps. He's in the car, setting up the changes that he wanted to make it go even quicker as we ride with Riccardo Patrese. Now, what sort of a lap is he on? He should move up to about third or fourth. And now Emerson Fittipaldi is out.
Mario, if you take the sector times, which we're privy to on TV, you'll find that, whoops, somebody's had a bit of a moment then. Patrese nearly lost it, but caught it well. The sector times so far would indicate that an ideal lap would be about a 37.1. At the moment, our best lap is a 37.7, so there is room for improvement by somebody.
Yeah, it looks as though 1:37 is about the target, but I am always suspicious of what the old fox Nigel Mansell has got in his pack back pocket. He always seems to be capable of reaching in and producing another half second or so to give him pole position, and he's really going to have his work cut out here, because if I'm right, he's out in about 10 minutes time, 5 or 10 minutes time. And
it's Riccardo just getting on the loud pedal a little early, but he caught it well though. He was jumped on it and brought it all back together, and off he goes. Well caught. Yesterday I was out on the circuit looking at some of these corners, and I was looking at Damon Hill, and he looked very, very good indeed. I really do hope that he decides to come and do the series, because I think he could really bring the challenge to Nigel and Emerson and the boys, because considering the time that he hasn't had in the car, he looked very, very good indeed.
Well, watch this man, Derek Warwick. He's second fastest at the present moment. He's just done the fastest first sector. He has just done the fastest second sector. If he keeps up this speed in the third and final sector, which he's in now, he will move into provisional pole position ahead of Stefan Johansson. Out goes the board, and Derek Warwick moves up with a 1:36.9, which is the fastest lap that we have had at Silverstone, and he runs off altogether on the exit to Copse Corner. Very tricky one. Maybe the wind caught the front of his car, but Derek Warwick now is the target for everybody. He's 0.2 of a second faster than Stefan Johansson, and Riccardo Patrese is third quickest. So now we are getting the quick men moving towards the top. Warwick, Stefan Johansson from Sweden, ex-Formula 1 driver, Riccardo Patrese, ex-Formula 1 driver, as of course they all are, but some have got more experience than others, and Eddie Cheever is now making a challenge. Eddie Cheever, number 17 in the primarily white car, has just gone faster than Derek Warwick in the first sector, as we look very closely at the Hampshire man, Derek Warwick, who now lives in Jersey and runs the 888 team out in Australian Supercar V8 racing. They're running very, very wide indeed. That's Eddie Cheever. That won't have done him much good.
Well, we were saying before about the ideal lap being in the sort of 37.1, so Derek's actually done better than the ideal lap.
Well, Cheever hasn't lost very much in that slight slide that he had there. He's done 41.9 in the second sector, which is about 0.2 of a second off the ideal pace. He should move up at least one position at the end of this lap if his third sector is all right, and we'll soon know the answer to that, because as you see the painted grid disappear under his wheels, Eddie Cheever moves up into second position on the grid. And this is the man who has driven in 132 Grand Prix. He's driven for 9 Formula 1 teams, including the Renault team at the time when it was up towards the top of its form. He's a great sports car driver. He's driven for Lancia, he's driven for Jaguar, and as I said earlier on, he certainly knows his way around Indianapolis, and he's still an active race driver, runs his own team in America, has a very dry, droll sense of humour. It's great to be in company with.
Oops. He would have lost a bit there, Murray.
He said to me yesterday, I like this new Silverstone. I've been off at Copse, I've been off at Stowe, and I've been off at Maggots, and I'm still finding my way round. Because this new Silverstone, Alan, most of them have not, well, all of them have not actually competed on before.
Well, Murray, it's really the equivalent of coming back to a brand new circuit, because anything that you learnt or had stored about the old circuit, you can forget it. It's just that possibly none of the corners are similar. You know, with the exception perhaps of, I don't know, say Copse or somewhere like that. That hasn't changed terribly much, but most of them have changed.
Andrea de Cesaris is the man that we are looking at the present moment. We've got 12 of the drivers, of the 15 drivers have put up time so far. Andrea de Cesaris has been the fastest on the circuit. He's clocked some 279 kilometres an hour. Now, I'm not very good at dividing by 8 and multiplying by 5 mentally, but that'll be a speed of just under 180 miles an hour on the approach to Stowe, as Emerson Fittipaldi, sitting in the cockpit, is getting slightly agitated about something or other. He's in 5th position at the moment, and his time is 1.2 seconds slower than that of Derek Warwick. Just checking this.
That's the Black Phantom car of a Stuck. It's a very attractive car, Murray. It looks fantastic. Of course, Phantom is the energy drink company out of Austria, and they've been with Grand Prix Masters now for a long time, but a very attractive looking car.
Yeah, double world champion, Hans Stuck, driving for Porsche. Le Mans winner twice as well. Here's Andrea de Cesaris heading down the hangar straight towards us. You can see these cars are they're not identical, but they're all different cars, but they've each got the same engine. They've got Avon control tyres. They're allowed 4 sets of dry tyres and 4 sets of wet tyres in case the weather turns bad. There's a lot of highly desirable things about this Grand Prix Masters series. There is no traction control on the cars. There's no rev limiters. The drivers have to change their own gears, and they have steel brakes, these cars. So they are I think they look like real racing cars.
Well, certainly it puts the responsibility back onto the driver, which is what I'm in favour of. But before we heard that de Cesaris was quickest down the straight. Well, of course, that is one of the variations that you can play with. There's only certain things that you can alter on these cars because they're all identical. But if you want to take less wing off the car or more wing off the car to try and get higher top speed to give you an advantage for properly passing in the race, you can do so. So de Cesaris may very well have done that, and that's why he's quickest up the straight. It's not because he's got a better engine, because they're all the same.
Well, here's Christian Danner, number 11, 48 years old, doing a bit of wrestling with the whip. Incidentally, these white stripes that you see there's one of them round the circuit, is where one of the engines was blown. One of the problems has been an oil seal at the back of the engine, and it's been spewing out oil onto the track, and they've had to put concrete dust on it to try and reinstate the grip. Now, Danner, as I've said, fancies his chances in this event. He was second to Mansell at Qatar. He's second to him in the pseudo championship, if there was one, and I hasten to say that there is no official championship, so don't suppose for one moment that there is. But Christian drove a very, very good race in Qatar, and he got it just about right tactically. He was fuming a bit because he was held up at the restart, and he's now third quickest. Christian Danner is third quickest behind Derek Warwick, who's fastest, Eddie Cheever, who is second, ahead of Stefan Johansson, who is in fourth position, as our Nige, Red 5, Il Leone in Italy, gets ready to give us some drama, get in the car and show us what he's made of.
Murray, also in this particular formula, no tyre warmers. So they've obviously got to be a little bit careful for the first half, 3/4 of a lap until they get some heat generated into those tyres. And I personally don't have a problem with that at all because it is the same for everybody.
Yeah, exactly. Well, I wonder what they've done to get it going. Look at the hands, head and neck support system that Nigel has got and which all the drivers are using. That hands device is a sort of plastic collar to which the helmet is strapped, and your shoulder straps from the safety harness go over it, and it is to limit head movement in the unfortunate event of the car crashing, because so many injuries to drivers in the past have been caused by whiplash. Pekka Häkkinen, for instance, had that dreadful crash in Australia which nearly terminated his life, never mind his career. And his head went right forward and hit the steering wheel, which you would have said fully belted was absolutely impossible. But the straps actually stretch an amazing amount as Christian Danner moves into provisional pole position. Now this I did not expect, I will be quite honest. It's just 7/100ths of a second faster than Derek Warwick's time, but 7/100ths of a second is enough. Thank you very much. Danner is fastest, Warwick is second, Cheever is in third position, Stefan Johansson moves down to fourth, Patrese to fifth, Fittipaldi to sixth. Where is our Nige? down goes Nigel. Now then, 16 minutes to go. Fastest time so far, Christian Danner, 1:36.9. That's faster than Nigel went yesterday. But the chips are down, and Emerson Fittipaldi, that we are riding with now and is one of the main competitors for Nigel Mansell in tomorrow's race, knows that the chips are down and he will be going for it. But it's going to be in the last few minutes of this 45-minute session that we can expect to see the action that decides who is going to be in pole position for tomorrow's Grand Prix Masters race here at Silverstone. The third in a series which started in November last year at Kyalami in South Africa, where they had a superb 75,000 crowd. It was a magnificent meeting on a superb circuit, and South Africa of course sees all too little single-seater racing, and they lapped it up, and it was a great event. And then we had Qatar earlier this year in April 2006, which was the hottest single-seater race on record. I think the track temperatures were about over 70 degrees. The cockpit temperatures were well up in the high 50s, and how on earth the drivers managed, I do not know. We had a big problem at Qatar in that the Losail circuit, a superb circuit, which cost £35 million to construct, had been constructed primarily for motorcycles, as a result of which there were no gaps in the Armco from which you could retrieve broken motor cars, and that meant that a great deal of the race was run behind the safety car. 14 minutes to go then, and we ride with Nigel Mansell. Now, is this going to be a lap which moves him up towards the front? It certainly is, because he's bound to go faster than Arnoux, Tambay, Salazar, de Cesaris. But how close to the front is Nigel going to be on this lap, as he goes round the left-hander and Maggots into Beckett's, the right, the left, which he enters at 120 miles an hour, changes down into third gear, the speed down to about 90 miles an hour. Soon he's going to come out of the left-hander at Chapel Curve, down the Hangar Straight, which we have seen him so famously in the past, driving down in Lotus cars, in Williams cars, in Ferrari cars. He's doing 180 miles an hour as he slows down and turns in sixth gear into the right-hander at Stowe Corner. Down the dip at the Vale, he's coming down to the second gear. It's a big stop here. He's stopping from about 150 miles an hour to 50 miles an hour. He exits Club Corner, third gear at about 80 miles an hour, accelerates hard up to the left-right at Abbey, a chicane where you used to go straight on at Abbey. Now it's a chicane which goes left and right. You come down from 165 miles an hour to 60, which is what he's doing now. And Nigel Mansell is on his build-up lap. This is the one, it's going to be the next lap when he really attacks the circuit. He's just getting the feel of the tyres now.
Exactly, Murray. He's using this lap to warm up the tyres, get the feel of the car, and without doubt, the next lap, this lap that we're coming on to now, will be the lap.
So we'll as he exits Woodcote Corner, look for the painted grid on the circuit. That's the starting grid. And here we go on what may well be the pole position lap, if Nigel Mansell's got it absolutely right over the line, down to Copse. And I'm going to be watching those vital sector times. The fastest sector that we've had so far was that of Eddie Cheever. Watch the seconds ticking away on the graphic at the right.
He's going for it. You can see the body language of that car.
Well, Nigel Mansell is the man who invented the word determined. And he's determined to be right up at the front when the race starts tomorrow. And he's just 6/100ths of a second below the fastest time that we've had so far for that first sector. So he's right on it, is Nigel Mansell, as he goes over the oil slick and the concrete dust. And he's lost it! Nigel spins off and comes to a standstill. That's destroyed that lap. And it won't have done his tyres any good at all.
He's got oil coming out of the back.
Oh, look!
He spun on his own oil.
Oh, is this yet another engine blow-up?
So he basically, well, he didn't lose it, that's a wrong expression, but that car let go going into the corner, which basically had all the indications of oil spewing out, getting onto the rear tyres under brakes, and then the back of the car just broke away. There's the oil flag.
Yeah, there's the yellow and red oil flag going out.
There he goes.
Nigel puts the lock on, but the car is long gone. If you've got lubricant between the rubber of your tyres and the tarmac of the circuit, there is no way that you're going to hold it.
The only thing, Murray, that something good out of bad might come is if they do get this car eventually under control. I personally am going to look very forward to seeing Nigel Mansell start from the rear of the grid.
But look at that engine; it's gone in a big way, and we were told before this session began that if any more engines went, that was going to be history, because my understanding is that they've now run out of parts to build new engines from. This is a major catastrophe from the point of view of the organisers of the Grand Prix Masters meeting, which is so essential. This is the most important meeting of the series that we've had. Christian Danner trying hard not to look happy, I think, because he's still in not only in pole position, but it means that Nigel Mansell, if he starts, and I do believe that a way somehow will be found to enable him to start, is going to be way down the grid. And if you can get a good start, he was 11 kilometres an hour on the main straight, Nigel Mansell, down on top speed. So he was suffering already. Stefan Johansson going for it now. Meantime, Jan Lammers is going quick too. We've got 9.5 minutes left, and here is the situation. Provisional pole position is Christian Danner, 1:36.9. Derek Warwick is just 7/100ths of a second slower than Danner in second position, ahead by 1/10 of a second of Riccardo Patrese, with Jan Lammers in fourth position and Eddie Cheever in fifth position. At the present moment, half a second covers the first 5 on the grid. The first 6 on the grid, actually. It's going to be very well, here I've just had the news given to me, and actually, in a way, it's good news. It wasn't an engine failure that caused Nigel to spin. It was a radiator hose breaking, which has put presumably hydraulic fluid on the back of the car.
Well, that's what they were having a little bit of trouble with before practice started. When they went to start the engine up, it was putting pressure through there that they hadn't experienced before. So maybe, I'm not any dispersions on the mechanics, but maybe it wasn't clamped on tight enough or whatever. But let's really hope that that's all it is, and they can get that car going, because that would be great for them. Nigel Mansell has to start tomorrow. I mean, like this race at Silverstone with that Nigel and
look at him now. He's not going anywhere at the present moment. And they've got to get a safety car. They've either got to stop practicing or get a safety car out and tow him in, and I don't think that's going to happen. I think Nigel Mansell is going to be starting from the back of the grid tomorrow with Eric van der Poele, that we haven't seen and won't be seeing, and with Pierluigi Martini, that we won't be seeing either. There's going to be 3 quick blokes starting from the back, because remember, you won't remember because I haven't told you, but Eric van der Poele drove an absolute storm of a race in Qatar. This is the ex-touring car and very limited amount of Formula 1 experience driver from Belgium, and he finished third in Qatar behind Christian Danner and Nigel Mansell. Well, as you rightly say, Alan, a lot of people were worried that Nigel Mansell was going to dominate the series. He won in South Africa, he won in Qatar, he looked a dead cert to win at Silverstone and go on and win every race that was held, but that may not be the case if he's going to be starting.
Ooh,
wow,
dear.
Well, what
serious
is going? That looks like Eddie Cheever involved there.
It's a serious bit of balking going on.
Well, it's Andrea de Cesaris, and take that. Now, nobody does this sort of thing on. Says Andrea de Cesaris, or whatever the Italian equivalent for that is, not at all happy, and it's very clear who he thinks was to blame. That's Chris Murphy on the right, race engineer for Christian Danner, fastest on the track so far, with 6 minutes to go. Any opinions, Alan, on Cheever and Andrea de Cesaris there?
Well, I think de Cesaris was actually in the way, to be honest. I mean, he was going considerably slower. Should have been looking in his mirrors and making a bit of room. And then maybe, I mean, I would probably... The main instigator for all of that was Andrea, there's no doubt about that.
Well, Nigel was good-humoured and tolerant and understanding about the whole thing before he got in the car. I've no doubt that he will be the same when he gets out of it, when he's finally retrieved from the circuit. I'm convinced now that with 5 minutes to go, just over 5 minutes to go, there is no question of stopping the qualifying session or bringing up a car to slow everybody up and let Nigel Mansell be towed in. But the first 6 are covered by just half a second at the moment. And nobody should think, Alan, that this is a bunch of old men in tired old motor cars going round to have a bit of fun. They're all going to be out for it tomorrow.
Well, they're just a bunch of very experienced ex-Formula 1 guys driving 600-odd brake horsepower state-of-the-art cars. I mean, these cars are producing a lot of downforce. They might have steel brakes and all the rest of it. But for me, that makes better racing.
Couldn't agree with
René Arnoux.
René Arnoux is out of the car and practicing the press-ups, swimming. Always up for a laugh.
Maybe a frog, an impersonation of a frog.
And that's Alex Caffi, incidentally, ex-Grand Prix driver, who is a sort of reserve driver for the Grand Prix Masters Series. As we watch Emerson Fittipaldi now, is he making a last effort to get up on pole position? Yes, of course he is. And he's got 4.5 minutes left to do it. And he's currently in 8th position, and his time is 1.2 seconds slower than that of Christian Danner. Now, Emerson Fittipaldi is the oldest driver on the circuit, but he has got so much experience, and he's got this wonderful, delicate control of the car. Everything seems to meld smoothly into the next move. Fittipaldi has just done a 1 minute, has just done a 31.9 for the first sector, which is not fast enough. And we're going to get his time now. He exits Woodcote over the start and finish, over the start grid, over the line, 1:37.859, and that leaves him still in 8th position with 3.5 minutes left to go. Alan, with them being so close, it's Derek Warwick. Derek Warwick out now. He's 3rd quickest. How much is it going to matter, Alan, given that they're in identical cars on identical control towers with identical horsepower engines behind them, to be in pole position as opposed to 4th, 5th, or 6th?
Well, I guess psychologically it's very important for everybody. Derek's having a bit of a go there. Look at that bit of oversteer. Whoop. Well corrected on. Oh dear. Well, forget that lap. I think Derek's going to get back on that circuit. He's going to gather himself up. There's 2.5 minutes to go, roughly, and I think he's going to have a serious bid for pole. There's nothing in it at the moment. He's literally a 15th behind Danner, and I think that if he can get a good lap together, he'll knock him off. But then Christian's out there trying to defend that position.
Yep. And all this shows that these cars are by no means easy to drive. They're very hard to control. You've got no traction control. You've got to get the balance between the power and the grip from your rear tyres absolutely right, or you're going to do what Derek's done and what we've seen other drivers do, and that's spin or go off. It's where precision and very, very delicate control is called for. We have now got just over 2 minutes left of this 45-minute qualifying session for tomorrow's Grand Prix Masters event here at Silverstone. And at the present moment, it is looking very much as though Christian Danner, who was 2nd to Nigel Mansell at Qatar and in 7th position in South Africa, and would be in 2nd position in the championship if there was one, is going to be starting in pole position. He's having a bit of a go as well, bit of left and right lock as he straightens things out, and he's just done a very good first sector. He's just about 0.03 of a second slower than the fastest we've had so far. Into the 2nd sector, but as Alan says, he's just basically protecting his position. He's out there putting up a good time with just over 1 minute 60 seconds left now to go to the end of the session. Out on the track we're riding with Christian Danner coming through to complete the lap. His target is his own fastest time of 1 minute 36.916, and he is 3/100ths of a second off that pace, so he is nothing if not consistent.
Well, it proves that he's doing it reasonably easy. In other words, he can go out there and lap within virtually nothing of the quickest time that he's already done, and that's a very ominous sign for his competitors for the race.
Well, it would be nice to see Christian Danner doing well. He's an extremely nice bloke, as is Derek Warwick. It's just this will be a last throw from Derek, but he's too slow in the first section.
Yeah,
his car's not looking at all happy. He's very, very slow compared with what he needs to be. And with now 10, 9, 8 seconds to go. 6, 5, 4, 3, 2, 1. That is the end of the 45-minute qualifying session. And as Derek Warwick tours in, the news is that Christian Danner starts in pole position for tomorrow's Grand Prix Masters event here at Silverstone. And he is just 2/100ths of a second, 2/100ths of a second faster than Stefan Johansson, who is just 5/100ths of a second faster than Derek Warwick, who is 1/10th of a second faster than Riccardo Patrese in 4th place, who is 2/10ths of a second faster than Jan Lammers in 5th position. In 6th place, completing the 3rd row, is Eddie Cheever, and his time of 1 minute 37.4 is just half a second slower than Christian Danner. Half a second covers the first 5 altogether, and Emerson Fittipaldi is nearly a full second behind. But the news, the dramatic news has to be the confirmation there that Nigel Mansell will be starting 13th ahead of Eric van der Poel and Pierluigi Martini as he sits in his still stationary car on the circuit. And we're going to see a heck of a race tomorrow when Danner, Johansson, Warwick, Patrese in particular try to get ahead enough to prevent Nigel Mansell storming through from the back to challenge them for the lead and victory at Silverstone.
Stefan, fantastic performance. I know you were a bit concerned with the setup of your car a bit earlier on.
Yeah, well, not so much to say. We've had a problem with the engine all day. We're still battling with it a little bit. It's like, I don't know, it's just not accelerating very well at the moment. So hopefully we can find out what it is tonight.
But I think you saying your engine's not accelerating very well when you are actually on second position it's all relative.
Well, of course it is, yeah. I mean, you know, like I said earlier on today when we did the interview, I mean, whoever gets it right on the day, you know, it's going to be up there. And, you know, then there's some guys, you know, like Derek, who gets a little bit extra horsepower, of course, but, you know, it's age-related.
I wish, yeah.
Now, Derek, are you actually ever going to grow up and stop squirting us with water?
The day I grow up will be the day I should stop driving these things. Because then hopefully I'll have some common sense and I won't be back in these things again.
Somebody told me if you make it to 50 without growing up, you never have to. So I think we're both right on target, aren't we?
Yeah, on target, yeah.
Well, well done for not growing up. But now, Derek, if I can just have a quick word with you. You kept pushing very hard, didn't you, all the way through?
Yeah, I got frustrated out there. On my quickest lap, I pulled 6th gear. I pulled for 5th on the straight and pulled 6th as well. So it bogged down, but that's my fault. And then I went out on new tyres right at the end and just couldn't find the grip. And went off at Copse, went off at Stowe. So, yeah, I was trying, yeah.
Now, obviously very disappointing. Nigel didn't manage to do a lap.
Oh, I'm gutted. Absolutely. Does that look like a face of being... Are you disappointed?
Distraught.
Distraught. No, we're very happy, actually.
Thank you.
It'll make for a great race.
Well, Christian, many congratulations. I mean, it's a great shame that Nigel didn't manage to get out and do a lap, but you've been up there all along, really, haven't you?
Well, it took me a while to get used to Silverstone, but it's such a shame that Nigel couldn't do any running because I think there's about 3 or 4 of us who are just about as fast as Stefan, as Derek, as Nigel, and I happen to be up front too. So with a bit of luck, I ended up on pole, which is nice.
Nigel, what happened exactly out there?
you probably saw if you were following, I started my hot lap and almost lost the back end here. And I got a third of the way around the circuit and I went braking hard into club. Immediately I touched the brakes, it just spun completely. The radiator exploded on the rear wheel, lost all my water, and obviously that was my run done. I tried to come back to the pits, but the engine immediately within seconds overheated, and I wasn't prepared to try and come back because it would have blown the engine. We haven't got any spare engines, so very frustratingly I sat there and just pondered the next couple of days, or the next day tomorrow, and just figured that I'm going to have an exciting race from the back of the grid.
Now, Nigel, you are going to have to call on all of your experience and all of your resolve, aren't you, tomorrow? Are you going to really fight your way through?
Well, my biggest challenge is have a car that I can do more than a few laps at the moment, but yeah, I think this is all stage managed, so I can put on a fantastic show tomorrow and try and obviously pass as many cars as I can and challenge at the front, but we've lost all day. We've not been able to set the car up, but you know what I'm like. I'll never give up, and you come tomorrow and watch the most fantastic charge in Grand Prix Masters history, because come what may, we'll be pushing as hard as I know to get towards the front as soon as possible.
And the notable thing is, I'll say again, that with Nigel Mansell starting at the back for the Grand Prix Masters tomorrow, trying to catch Christian Danner, Stefan Johansson and the rest, and make it 3 wins out of 3 races, it is going to be something to see. Do join us.